Hari Om everyone. Hello, Namaskar. Today's topic is very interesting topic to talk about. It is called bondage. This bondage is not from British. So this is very important and interesting topic, and which is very relevant to all of us, and like to understand what is this bondage and also how we can get rid of this bondage. We'll talk about some of the methods, some of the principles. So before we start with this bondage, I like to do a small prayer and then I'll start. Om Vakratundo Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Devo Sarvakarishu Sarvada Saraswati Namastabhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Kariswami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Well, so anybody, if you talk to them and then in American context or in India, if you tell them about freedom, they generally always think about that they can do whatever they want, wherever they want to go, they can go, whatever they want to eat, they can. So they always think that they have always freedom. So nobody thinks that they are in bondage. So that is the general kind of understanding about this, and now I will try to explain this bondage is kind of subtle to understand how we are bounded and what are the bondages each one of us have. So some examples of bondages are drinking coffee in the morning. Without drinking coffee in the morning, I don't feel comfortable. So do you hear something like that from people? And people sometimes say, I can't drive without putting good music in my car. And some guy will say, I don't like to ride bike without my leather jacket. Every weekend I have to watch a Disney movie, otherwise I don't feel that my weekend is used wisely. And some parents complain, my kids does not listen to me, my kids are very much excited all the time and they don't listen to me, and that makes me very angry. And some boys might say, I love her but she doesn't love me, and I get upset. And some people might say, I don't like my neighbor because they do too much show off. So all these kind of things generally happen with everybody, and it could happen in a different way, but these are all kind of generic example to tell that these are all shows that we are having some kind of bondage. Okay, so I'll try to talk about the principles now. So if you think about non-dual approach to get rid of this bondage, so non-dual approach is very simple and very difficult. Hardly people can achieve this. So non-dual approach is bondage exists in the mind. You are not the mind. You are Brahman or Atman. No identification of real I to the mind. So who has realized that? He is a Brahma Jnani. For him, bondage doesn't exist. So most of the people we are not realized about this Brahman, and we are kind of in a plane where always our ego or small I attached to the mind, or we always knowingly or unknowingly always identified with the mind. So non-dual approach is not going to work for us. So what we'll talk about mostly is not non-dual approach to get rid of bondage. So in this case, ego is identified with the mind, and mind says that today I did this, so I am happy. Immediately you say, I am happy because I did this. and then you did something and which your mind thinks that it is a bad thing I did, and immediately you feel that I did a bad thing. So whatever mind is feeling happiness or sadness, all the time we identify and we say that we are happy or unhappy. So that is the kind of situation for mostly for us, and because of that we are in kind of bondage. So now it is important that we make a big list of all our bondages. All of them we cannot solve, maybe one by one we can take and we can try to solve. So before we try to solve this problem, let's define this problem and understand the principles of bondage. So I'll start with the definition of bondage. What is bondage? Mind attached to sense object is bondage. Bondage is slavery. Bondage is enslavement, restriction, limitations, and sorrows. So in short, bondage is attachment. And freedom, mind detached from the sense object is freedom. Freedom is liberation from all limitations. So detachment means here it is not indifference. It is like if I give an example of lotus flower, which is in the dark water, but water doesn't touch the leaf of the lotus. So leaf of the lotus is in the water, but it is not touched by the water. So it is detached from the water. So similarly, mind has to detach from the sense object in order to get freedom. So freedom is equal to detachment. So why we are in bondage? People might ask these questions. First of all, okay, you're talking about bondage, that's fine, but why we are in bondage? We are in bondage because we are ignorant of our own self, or Atman or Brahman. We think that we are the small I or the ego, and most of the people might think they are the mind. Basically, small I identified with the mind, and they think that they are the mind, and all the time mind is looking for happiness in many different ways. It's because of this ignorance of self, always mind feel that not content or happy, and to get happiness it try to get object or try to do some activities. And goal is happiness for everybody, but method or trying to achieve that happiness could be many different ways because of different tendencies people acquire based on previous many births. People have different type of vasana accumulated based on previous many births. So those birth stored vasana is driving everybody in a different way, but the goal is to get happiness. So that is the reason mind is trying to get object, and when we come into contact with object and we get attached to that, and that is how we get binded, and we are, that is the reason we are in bondage. So now how to know some activity or object is bondage for someone? Kind of litmus test, or some kind of test you, or some kind of check you want to do all the time to understand you are in bondage or not, is sadness or happiness. Any activity you do, if you feel happy or sad, that means that activity is bondage for you. If you eat something, if you feel happy or if you feel sad, in both the cases you are in bondage. So attachment is, sometimes people think that getting something or liking something is attachment. It is not only that, it is the opposite also the same way. Like you don't like some food, it is attachment for you. You don't like to eat some food, or you don't like to do some activity, that is a kind of bondage for you, because you are trying to stay away from that, it is also a bondage. So it has to be understood from both the side. Okay, and next is how to get freedom from bondage. We have Upanishad called Amrita Bindu, and sloka number 3, which tells mind free from desire of sense objects become free. Therefore, a seeker of liberation should constantly practice to make his mind free from sense objects. It is very good, very nice to know, but the question is, to make mind free from desire, how to do that? And it is telling us to practice, but what to practice? This is the thing is we need to ponder. When it is telling that mind has to be free from desire, desire doesn't come by itself. Before desire, we have some more things. So desire comes due to attachment to the objects, and attachment comes due to repeated contemplation of sense objects. So if you notice that everybody have two type of attachment. One is, I would say, new attachment people are getting into, and already people have existing attachment. So new attachment, how you get a new attachment? It is sloka number 62 in chapter 2 in Bhagavad Gita. There is a famous sloka, dhayate vishayan puncho sangastesu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodhat vijayate. So this sloka is telling repeated contemplation of the objects, one might develop attachment to that, and attachment leads to the desire. We know that people go for window shopping and start seeing some stuff. Take example of diamond jewelry, and you go to window shopping and you see a diamond jewelry and you look at that and you like it, and but you thought it's okay, I don't need to have that. But again, next day you go for window shopping, you started thinking about that, and slowly you started feeling that I probably will look very good if I buy that, and then still you don't buy and you keep thinking about that, and slowly you get attached to it, and then one fine day you go to a party and you see that some friend is wearing that diamond necklace, the same one what you have been looking in the store, and then you cannot resist by seeing that, and then immediately next day you go and buy that. So this is how it works. So repeated contemplation is the key, which is creating attachment, and from that attachment you're creating desire. So this is how the process works for the new attachment. So the key not to create new attachment is, don't do repeated contemplation on objects. So existing attachment, what is existing attachment? Already we have so many attachment to so many things. So how to get rid of those attachments? That is another mountainous kind of task to do. So here one important factor is intelligence. Intelligence is the key factor here, which can help mind to create a right thinking. So right thinking is the important factor, and which is kind of art for people to practice and learn how to create right thinking. Right thinking, I don't mean it is a fake thinking. It is to reason the mind and make the mind understand that what is to be done in order to not to get attached or reduce the strength of the attachment. If you take example of spicy masala dosa, for example, and you like to eat spicy masala dosa every week, without that you don't feel comfortable. Now it is a kind of bondage, because you have a habit of having that in every weekend, and what you have to do is, you have to reason your mind. Now your health is getting affected by that, it is so spicy, and you don't you should not eat so much. You should probably reduce that once in 2 months, so that your health doesn't get affected so much. So this is how you reduce the strength of that bondage, and slowly, if your health doesn't permit, probably you should stop eating that. So that is how you can get rid of the bondage, or you can reduce the strength of the bondage. And other option is to reduce the strength of the bondage or reduce the bondage is purification of mind. So purification of mind happens. Purification of mind means you're establishing your mind to a sattvic level. So how you can do that is by meditation, puja, nam jap, and Bhagavan's name smarana, or visiting holy places, kirtan, yagga, charity, and tapas or austerity. All these kind of things you can do to purify your mind. And then when your mind is in a sattvic level or purified, it is easier for you to do right thinking and reduce the strength of the attachment, and finally you can get rid of the attachment. And the next topic is next point is object does not give happiness. It is sometimes if you say somebody that object does not give happiness, people get very offended. People kind of have an understanding of it gives temporary happiness, but truth is it is not temporary happiness. Temporary happiness is illusion. Object never give happiness. So what happened is, object or any activity or anything comes in front of you or in front of your sense organ. Next thing is your mind creates thought automatically, and mind might create thought of happiness thought or unhappy thought. So based on that thought, you will start feeling happy or unhappy. I'll take a example of this to prove the point here. If you think of eating gulab jamun, and you are eating gulab jamun, what is happening? Gulab jamun goes into your mouth, and the beautiful taste, and the mind creates a happy thought. And then suddenly you hear some bad news somewhere, and immediately the taste of gulab jamun goes away, and your mind start thinking some other worry thinking. So immediately the happiness from the gulab jamun goes away. So in both the cases, mind is creating thought where you don't have any control. So mind is creating by itself based on the object, happy thought, unhappy thought. You don't have any control. So naturally you are not in a control of happiness or sadness. It is happening by itself. Now if you take a close look and ponder over this, in any case, object did not create the thought. Your mind created that thought. You should apply your intelligence and be more responsible to create right thought. Your thought should not depend on the objects. If your thought depend on the objects, that means you are slave to that object. How silly is this? Are we powerless? We are not. We have the power to apply our intelligence to think right. So now in the end, I just want to tell you that we have to identify our bondages, and then take one or two, then try to work on that, reduce the strength of the bondage or get rid of it. I'll take one example as a last example I'll take, and I'll close with that. So take example of drinking tea in the morning. Drinking tea is not good for health, and still we drink, and we cannot survive without that. So now your intelligence has to work. So how you can think about this to convince your mind to create right thought? So you analyze this situation, and you can analyze, and you can find out the truth of drinking tea. You know that I am not born with drinking tea. It is only British brought to India to make money. As a child, we saw people drinking tea, and we also got into that bad habit. Now you can think, I study Vedanta, I know what is truth, and I am not weak. I should not get into this bad habit which is affecting my health, which has no any positive value to health. I should not drink that. Okay, as suddenly I cannot stop, I always feel like drinking tea, so I'll reduce this drinking tea, and now every day I will drink probably once in a week, or slowly I'll make it once in a month, and this is how I'll reduce, and I'll once in one day I'll stop this habit. So this is an example. It will work for many other things, but the type of bondage, and depending on the situation of bondage, people will have challenges to create a right thinking and right analysis. That would be the challenge, and there are a lot of people who are very knowledgeable, can help to guide in those cases. Thank you for listening.